Hi everyone, welcome to Rendering Teardown section. My name is Simon. Today we're gonna have a look at this interior rendering and talk a little bit about lighting mainly, and a couple of details regarding texturing and modeling. So let's get started. As you can see, we're dealing with a living room space with the adjacent kitchen, and the overall image is quite good. We have like a really simple frontal view, and I think the focal length is sort of okay. It might be a little bit like there's a tiny bit of a distortion on the outside of the the edge of the image, but it's not too concerning. I think there's a in terms of composition, it's okay. In terms of lighting, there's something a little bit weird, because we have like a really interesting lighting coming from the left side here with really soft shadows, really simple and interesting, with a bluish tint, which is really interesting. On the other side here, we have a little bit too much actually, because you can see here we have the cast, well, not the cast shadow, but the direct light here and here coming from this window and another window that must be outside, and we can't see it because this is not aligned with this. And then we have this big light here with 4 bright points plus the spotlight, and even smaller spotlights here, well, like not smaller, but we have 4 spotlights plus this plus the natural lighting. And actually you can see it, like if I put it in black and white, it is a little bit too, it is extremely bright. And the thing is, you can't really, contrary to what's happening here where you have nice soft shadows, a little bit harder shadows here, and something like a nice contrast between what's in the light and what is not. In our case here, everything is sort of homogeneously lit, and it's not really good and interesting, because it sort of flattens the image, because everything is sort of have the same amount of light, which is not really what happens in real life. Here you have a little bit darker areas, but it's really not contrasting enough. So what could be interesting is to actually, I think it'd be the main idea here is to sort of have 2 different areas, like a sort of dark one here and a more light here. What could be interesting is to actually rely a little bit more on the natural lighting, and use a little bit less of the artificial lighting. Something that could be done actually would be to, as you can see here, the light don't go really deep into the space. So what could be interesting is to actually change the sun so that we have a little bit of light on the table, like this here on the table as well, so that we have direct light, and that this light from here sort of cast light on the couches and the pillows here. And the thing that could be interesting is to actually turn off, it would have to try, because I don't know which one is the best, but I would either turn these ones off and keep the spotlights, so that we have this one dark, this one with natural lighting, this one with natural lighting plus some spotlights, or the other way around, with this one dark, this one like dining area with a proper ceiling lamp with the natural lighting, and this one much darker with just the natural lighting getting through and illuminating the couches, and this would be much darker. This way you would get something a little bit more interesting in terms of dynamic, because in our case here there's too much discrepancy between the 2 different areas, I think. Another thing that we can notice as well is that everything is a little bit washed out, and it comes from the fact that this is this is extremely bright, and this looks a little bit too bright too on the left side here. So what I would do is just add a little bit of a contrast. As you can see here on the layer mask, I took it away on the right side so that because otherwise it would contrast a little bit too much. But the idea here is that we have quite a diffuse and soft light coming in, so that we don't want to have too harsh contrast. But on the other hand, here we quite want it to be quite dark, because it's supposed to be like only a really small light source from the outside that is like diffuse light, not direct light. So here, by doing this simple thing, we sort of recenter the attention on the right side, or on the bright side here. The thing is, as I was saying earlier, this spot here, or a spot in terms of composition, this bright spot here is extremely, like, really draws attention, which is not really what you want. So I would definitely try to lower actually turn these off so that this is a bit darker, and so that the living room sort of bathed in the natural lighting would sort of stand out, and we would have only this as a darker foreground with interesting small details. So I think in terms of composition that would be more interesting. In terms of hues as well, if we look at this, where is it? Here, or like that. If we look at here, we have interesting blue here, and here everything is yellow. So the idea, if we sort of change it a little bit, would be like if we end up with if we turn off the light in the foreground here, that would makes it sort of cooler like that, and we would only get that area. Whoops, sorry. Could actually be a bit. Anyway, the idea would be to have only cold light or a cold temperature in the foreground and on the left side, and warmer temperature in the background with the natural lighting coming in. Of course, I'm just trying to recreate it with layers here, but it would be much quicker on the actual rendering and calculation. Beside that, I think the composition in itself is really quite simple and efficient. There are a couple of things regarding textures that could be enhanced a little bit. I really like the countertop here, where you can see we have like slight smudges and a little bit of bump, and it's quite interesting and working pretty well. On the other side, we have like the ground floor, and basically all the stonework is a little bit low resolution, and it sort of stands out. So I would try to get a better resolution, or better higher resolution image to work from. The rest in terms of texture is okay. I've got like a hard time figuring out what this is because it looks kind of weird, because the reflection doesn't really like this super bright spot here doesn't reflect on the ground, and I don't really understand what it is. If it's the mirror, it's not a mirror, because it's not reflecting what's around it. And for an artwork, it sort of goes all the way down to the ground, and since it's quite bright on a dark area, it really catches the eye. So whatever that is, it would be a good thing to actually detail it a little bit more, so that we understand quite straightforwardly what this is. In terms of texture, again, there was some weird stuff happening with this part of the lamp here, because you can see there's like a lot of fireflies there. So I guess it comes from the fact that the lights here are super bright, and this doesn't really go well with the glossiness or something like that. So be careful with that kind of thing. You can just like select it and repaint over it. It doesn't really matter, since it's just metal. It's going to be quite easy. Couple of things, like one thing that is quite fun is the electric socket here. You have to be careful when you place them that you actually take off bits of the wall so that you actually see the inside, because this is recessed, and if you don't model the wall accordingly, it's going to look like that, and it's not really good. Like, it doesn't really catch the eye, but if you look at it, it's like you can't really, like, you actually see it. So yeah, be careful with that. Beside that, I think it's a really good image. It's not much to change, but I think it would be good to sort of reorganize the hierarchy of the lighting, and really, like, I think it's something that I see oftentimes in interior rendering, but I really advise you to rely more on the natural lighting rather than actually using artificial lighting all the time, because you can already do a lot of good things with just natural lighting. So yeah, that's it. Hopefully you've learned interesting tips in terms of composition, and I'll see you in the next Teardown. Bye guys.
Tonight, Bill, I had a new